Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And I suspect most of you will have seen the Amar Championship trailer, which was really cool. It did really feel like a genuine EVE Online trailer with all the effort behind it. And maybe you've also seen one of the videos about that new, probably drifter structure that was found. I saw the video from the Gentleman Gamer, and I think it's really interesting because I'm hoping that this means we will start to once again see some live events, see some lore action come to the game. Probably the problems with the Defense of the Throne worlds has delayed all of that a little bit. But I'm hopeful that we'll see some live events in the near future. Once again, I'm definitely keeping an eye out for those. Of course, we are here for the market, so let's jump right in here with some plex at around 1 minute. And you can see here from this 6-month chart that plex was under pressure a little bit from the Crimson Harvest sale, but honestly, it's not like we had a serious drop-off either. Just managed to stay below 1.2 billion, and that's it. The really bad news, I think, is that the 5-day moving average is in the process of crossing the 20-day moving average. And if you take a look at the 6-month chart and continue to trace up the momentum, I think it's definitely in the cards that plex could go higher once again. So the sellers almost at 1.185 billion ISK. You do still have a decent amount coming in, less than 24 hours ago. Right here you can still see 11 of them, 7 of them here. The buyers are at 1170, something like that. But I think that the impact from the Crimson Harvest sale is going to stop right now, and that unfortunately will mean that plex will start to retrace its path up here, heading towards 1.25, possibly 1.3 billion, something like that. And now this is speculation, but if I try to look a little bit further into the future when it comes to plex, I think that the biggest impact is going to be the upcoming Citadel expansion early next year, so should be spring 2016. And the reason I expect that we will actually see higher prices for plex, despite the fact that we're already at 1.2 billion, is my past experience. So 3-4 years ago we used to always have a big winter expansion, and something that happened almost every year was like a speculative bubble that pushed plex prices up very substantially just before or around the expansion, and then we would actually have a bubble where we would drop back off in the course of the year towards the summer. And so this is my expectation. At the moment, there could just be a natural inflation process that is increasing the price of plex. I don't think that with that process 1.3 billion is completely out of the question, but after that we're going to start to close in on the expansion, and then I would say keep an eye out for some violent upswings for plex that could be speculation driven, and then I couldn't tell you how high I would expect plex to go then, but it could be significantly high, especially if CCP decides to throw in the skill trading, skill point trading as well at some point. That could be something that will have a major impact as well. So those are the two things that I would keep an eye out if that pattern comes back, because it will be the first big expansion in EVE Online in a while, probably with a trailer, probably with everything behind it that could bring back veterans, but could also bring new blood. All of those people will probably want to, if they can, plex their account a little bit, and all of that could put huge pressure on the price of plex. And so that is my expectation, of course. I could be completely wrong on that. This is purely speculative, but I want to give you guys that perspective, because it is what I'm keeping at the back of my mind at the moment, is that despite the fact that plex are at 1.2 billion, I still think we'll be going up slowly in the next few months, but as we close in on the expansion, I think we could see violent upswings despite the fact that we're only at 1.2 billion. It's up to you to decide what you want to do with that information. The multiple pilot training certificate, pretty much mirroring the plex, of course. But that one has already crossed the 20-day moving average with its 5-day moving average chart. So you can see that the upwards momentum here is probably just going to start back up. And yeah, plex and the multiple pilot training certificates are very closely correlated. So I suspect that we will actually see the exact same thing happen to plex right here. The body resculpt, it's having a little bit of an impact from the increased price of plex, from all of the skins, whatever is happening to the Aurum store. And so over 6 months you can see that we went from 160 million to 280 million. Same little bit of a pullback with the Crimson Harvest sale, and now we are back up now that that one is over. But that doesn't mean that there is that super strong correlation that we have between plex and the trading certificate. This is a little bit of its own market, but of course stuff like Aurum and plex prices have its impact, have their impact on the body resculpt market as well. So it is going up at the moment together with them, although it's not like a one-on-one correlation that you do see between the other two. Moving on to some minerals then at 550. Let's take a look at some of this. We will start here with titanium, and that's some pretty good news in my book, especially for miners. Titanium seems to have some room to go back up here again. So we went up pretty violently up to 6.2 ISK, then we corrected a little bit below 6.10, but now we're back to 6.2. In fact, we're at 6.3 for the sellers and 6.21 for the buyers. So that's already above that that top that we reached previously for the buyers. That's not insignificant. What this means is that titanium still has some room to just keep going up, and that this increase in price here from, let's say, 540 to 620, probably in like 3 weeks time, was just a little bit too violent for the market. There needed to be a slight pause in the increase in price, but it's only a pause. It looks like titanium is going back up again. For some historic perspective, I've seen titanium above 7 ISK, so this price is not completely outrageous or an all-time high or anything like that, despite what you're seeing on the chart. 6.2 ISK is still a price that's well within the realms of what we've seen in EVE Online previously. Looking at supply demand here, you see some pretty big orders coming in. 1.3 billion for the buyers, another 1.9 billion. That's a little bit of an older order at 640. Just below that here we get another 2 billion coming in at 640. So people are starting to bring more titanium to the market at these higher prices, but the buyers, I think, are still pretty strong as well. Yeah, look at that, 1.5 billion, 900 million, 850 million, 700 million, still competing with each other at around 6.16 ISK here, and then there's still someone coming in at 621 as well. This is putting enough pressure to increase the price of plex. The exact top, it's very hard to tell how high this could go. If people keep stacking up their minerals in preparation of the citadels, we could go quite a bit higher yet. I think the supply demand numbers are what you'll need to keep an eye on, that to try and find out where the top will be. At the moment, I would still give a slight edge to the demand side, because 1.5 billion, almost a billion, almost a billion. You have a few big orders, but for the recent ones, a very ambitious one of 2 billion at 6.4, and then here 1.3 billion at 631. So I would still give the edge to demand. I think that titanium could break a little bit higher towards 6.4, maybe even 6.5. Next up here we've got pyrite. Unfortunately, pyrite is not doing that well, although you can see that it has retraced quite a bit from the last 6 months. It's only an increase from 10.7 ISK to 11.3 ISK, so that's not even that much percentage wise. And if you look at the 1 year chart, you can clearly see that we have quite a ways to go from the top of 13 ISK. That is the all-time high for the high for the entire year. If you look at titanium though, we're pretty much back at where we were about a year ago at 6.3. So we're pretty much at the high point for the year at the moment, and I think we could go even higher from this point out. So yeah, pyrite not doing too well. It's probably overmined, maybe underused a little bit in the new considering the amounts of stuff that is being mined at the moment. I guess pyrite is just being overproduced. It's pretty much the only explanation for it still being this low, not having retraced that much percentage wise. And so yeah, I would say if you can mine minerals in HiSec, don't focus too much on whatever brings up pyrite, because that's not too hot at the moment. Next up here we've got Mexalon. Very interesting here, spike up to 70 ISK, going back down. It's hesitating at the moment, but will it come back up together with titanium. I think we'll have to look at supply demand for that. Let's take a look at supply here. Less than a day old, you only have a very small order here, so you don't have that much that's less than a day old. People seem to be waiting for for Mexalon to go back up a little bit before bringing new stuff, but we still have quite a big numbers here: 24 million, 50 million, 77 million here. All of those are still on the market and maybe need to be chewed through, because if you look at the demand side, you see some recent order, but they're not that big. 2.24 million, 32 million, that's a decent one as well. 15 million, it's just not that much compared to what's still on the market. So the question is, can people afford to wait for Mexalon? Personally, I think they can. They'll probably wait for the price to go back up before bringing new supply to the market. That does mean that there's still a few 100 million units that need to be chewed through on the supply side that's still here and available. So it could be that Mexalon will move sideways at the moment for a little bit until that supply has been chewed through, and then people could start bringing stuff back up at much higher prices than what we're seeing at the moment. Pretty interesting, the hesitation in the Mexalon market here at the moment. Not something we see that often. We usually do see minerals move one way or the other, or a clear balance between supply and demand, but there's absolutely no recent supply to be seen here, except right now a new order coming in of 17 million units. But other than that, it seems pretty slow in the Mexalon market. Next up here we've got Isogen dropping off quite substantially and with some momentum of a high of probably 127 ISK, something like that. Now we're dropping, breaking 115. The bottom was below 100 and the bars are at 111, sellers 113, so that's already pretty damn low. Isogen, not very good news for Isogen, retracing back quite a few of its gains, which had done pretty nicely, going back up above 125 here. So I'd say I will probably keep an eye on that and see if I need more Isogen for my Citadel plans, and then probably try to snatch some up on the way down here. I think it could be quite okay considering what the other high-sec minerals are doing. If Mexalon starts to move back up, then I think that Isogen could start to at least stabilize, if not move back up as well, together with the other ones. But a divided high-sec mineral market at the moment. Next up, let's take a look at, maybe go back to the 6-month chart here to see some details. The Noxium market, well, very timid increase in price, trying to reach that 490 ISK, but it's apparently very, very hard to do so considering how slow everything is going in this market. What's the supply looking like? We still have 4 million units, 4 million units here, a million units here. The demand side, there's one order of 3 million, trying to pick it up at 484. No, it's just not looking too good for Noxium. There's still more supply than demand, despite the very low prices, despite the sub 500 ISK prices, and I think it's going to just continue moving in this band between 470, pretty much the bottom for the last 6 months, and 500, which it has not managed to reach in quite a while either. Yeah, Noxium not looking too hot, but if you're looking to build up stocks, that's probably a good time to do so. The null-sec ones then, we've got Megasite, still has some pressure on it. You can clearly see that we're going down in the last 6 months here, and from last week we're down yet a little bit more, and here we're at 1370 pretty much for the sellers, 1300 for the buyers. They're trying hard, actually, I feel, to bring that buy order price below 1300. There's still some people coming in, but they're pretty small in number, 500,000 below 100,000 units. Those are pretty small numbers compared to 1.2 billion coming in, 3 billion coming in. So I would still give the edge to supply here. I would still give more pressure. The danger is once we break 1.3 thousand ISK, we could go quite a bit lower all of a sudden. That's a psychological barrier apparently at the moment that's trying to hold on, but how long can it do so with the supply that's still coming in bigger numbers than the demand at the moment? I don't know. I think if you would see, you see some data points trying, you know, really close to 1300. If that would be broken, look out below, Megasite could correct even more. And the Zydrine market clearly again going down from that top that was over speculated. The amount of supply that's being brought from Nullsec at the moment, where, well, there are some wars going on, but nothing like galactic wide at the moment, I would say. The wars are pretty much smaller skirmishes in different regions that are happening. That means that plenty of people apparently can mine in peace, bring a lot of supply to the market, and thus put that huge pressure on the Nullsec minerals. Zydrine, let's take a look at where the buyers are at. Just above 1,000, sellers 1,047. That's not that big of a margin either, and yet we still see 2.2 million units coming in right here. A pretty recent order, less than 24 hours old. On the buy order side, 3,000 units being bought here, 250,000, well, 7 million, that's not bad. 2 million here, that's not bad either, but keep in mind 2 million here is well below 1,000 ISK. So very dangerous territory, I think, both for Zydrine and Megasite. So close to, I think those are psychological barriers of 1,000 ISK and 1,300 ISK for both of those on the buy order side. If that gets broken, look out below, we could see another spurt back down. I think that's what my expectations are, at least. Let's take a look at some impacts on the Tech 1 market. 16 minutes for that one. I'll quickly go through these. I'm expecting at the moment some more stability because Highsec minerals are hesitating, Nullsec minerals still going back down. I think that at the moment, if you're at a high point like here for the Armageddon, you're making a lot of money on producing these because now the minerals are actually becoming cheaper and cheaper. Except for some Highsec minerals, but all of it seems to be stalling at least. So yeah, 208 million, but we are going down here at the tail end. 20-day moving average also finally showing a sign that it's going back down. What's the supply looking like? Not that much. Come on, people. Armageddons, I think you're making pretty decent money on Armageddons here at the moment. So I'm still expecting this gap to be plugged. It's just not happening at the moment. Pretty weird. Next up here we've got the Caracal moving between 11.5 and 12.5, so I think that's quite okay. A little bit of a bump up. Did something happen? No, we still have decent supply here, 110.95. It's probably gonna drive the price back down, but moving between 11.5 and 12.5 is quite okay, I think, for Tech 1 Cruiser. Next up here we've got the Dominics. Okay, there's some volatility, but keep in mind we're talking at the recent spurt back down and up, move between 204, 196, and now back up towards 202. So it's not that much considering the 200 million price points. And percentage-wise, it looks more violent than it actually is. And so an average of around 200 million at the moment, I think, for Dominics is not out of line. And supply, okay, not that much, honestly. Look at that. Only a couple of really recent orders coming in here at like 205 million. The buyers are at 195. And there's a bit more demand. Look at that. Quite a few recent orders here as well, which is what has pushed the price back up here. But if a bit more supply would come in, then this will probably correct back down, and a movement around 200 million for a battleship is pretty normal. It's pretty weird then that the Armageddon is not seeing some more supply pressure, considering the much better price you get there. Well, much better, around 5 million more. Next up here, the Drake. Let's take a look at that. Decent supply numbers, pretty decent numbers, less than a day old as well. 30, 22, 22 here. Demand seems to be slowing down. I'm not seeing that many really new big orders here. You have 2 of 10 that could try to support the price a little bit, but yeah, Drake's going back down towards 50 million. And I think that that's actually pretty normal. Supply has caught up by now, and thus the high point of the last 6 months, we're going back down a little bit due to supply pressure. Finally, a ship that's doing what I was expecting it to do. Next up here, the Mauler showed how stable it was over the last 6 months. Then that big spike up when pretty much all Maulers have been bought out of the market. But an immediate reaction, I think, from supply, and now we're coming back. We're slowly coming back for the Maulers here. Still at 12.7 million, a little bit more than what we used to, but the buyers are still sub 11 million. You can clearly see that there's decent supply coming in every day now. 29, 45, 70 here, 15, 10. This is going to continue putting some pressure, and I think we'll drop below 12 million for the sellers pretty soon. Again, bringing the molars back in line with what they were 6 months ago. Next up here, the Myrmidon, a bit of volatility as well, moving around 55, 56 million at the moment. So let's take a look at supply demand. Well, it's coming in, so the counter reaction from this spurt up here is already in here with 44 units, 20, 11, 11. That's quite a bit for a battle cruiser in 24 hours. So I think that the pressure is back on here, will start to go back down if supply keeps coming in, but I still see a few gaps. Then we could normalize towards 54 million at the moment, probably just a little bit higher than that. Next up here, the Oracle. Good to see that that one is going back down, so we should see quite a bit of supply coming in. Was of course a very nice opportunity. If you could sell Oracles above 90 million, I think you're making really good money on the production there. So I think people finally spotted that opportunity. And yeah, 35, 50, 16 here, still 8, 6, 2. People are bringing them in at 86 million, which I think still makes them decent money. But the pressure is on, the supply is back here. That's why you're starting to see a pullback. It would be good to see some more stability, like above 80 million for the Oracle from now on. Let's hope that Take 1 supply can actually manage it. Otherwise, it would definitely mean that Take 1 production is lagging behind the general usage in the economy at the moment a little bit. 200 million for a Raven, starting to move sideways just below, just above that. I think it's not out of line for a battleship. 201, you can see decent supply here, 21, quite a few orders, less than 24 hours as well, and 195, 196 for the mount, which is pretty stable here as well. So it's looking okay for the Raven to start moving around 200 million. It's looking okay for the Dominics as well. If a bit... The Armageddon might need a bit more supply. Next up here we've got the Stabber. Again, that nice period of stability, that spike up because Take 1 market just pretty much bought out. Then the reaction right here, and then I think we'll see some supply pressure. Yeah, look at that, 89, 30, still pretty big numbers. The one thing, we're not seeing that many new orders, 7-6 compared to the daily average of probably 40 units, something like that. It's not a lot, and apparently Stabbers are going to manage to hold on to a price of around 11.5 to 12 million at the moment. And yeah, maybe a slight opportunity if you want to, but you can see that the correction came in pretty quickly now, and yeah, maybe across the board there is a little bit less Take 1 production going on, being brought to the market. Here's the Tornado, also lovely opportunity at 80 million, dropping back down towards 74 million, which is starting to close in on its more normal price at the moment. That means that there's quite a bit of healthy supply. Look at that, people made a move on Tornadoes, pretty much this entire front page, which means probably 150 Tornadoes coming in less than 24 hours. Compare that's probably 3 days supply pretty easily, and that's putting that pressure on. So we will see the Tornado normalize finally. Then next up here we've got the Typhoon. Again, it looks pretty bad for this chart, if you want to call the Take 1 market stable, but keep in mind that we start at 174 for a battleship. All the other ones have already made their move towards 200 million, so 190, 195 for a Typhoon is quite okay. Supply wise, we're looking pretty healthy as well. All of this is less than 24 hours old. Decent demand, not that much. Typhoon will have some pressure on it at the moment, going back down probably towards 190 is my expectation. And then finally here we have the Vexor, pretty decent, heading towards 11.5 once again as an average point for the last 6 months. And supply, whoa, 228, that's quite a bit. That's gonna put a little bit of pressure on the Vexor. We could actually see a bit of an overcorrection because of that right here. That's a possibility, I think, for the Vexor. But overall, there are a few more gaps to plug, but more and more ships are coming back with decent supply and decent demand. So that's looking pretty good. Next up, Take 2 market, 24 minutes for that. Let's take a look at some of the trade opportunities. Unfortunately, I've not been able to spot that many of them lately. Here's the Basilisk starting to move sideways between 180 and 185. I would like to see them drop as low as 175 for the real triggers for volatility. That's pretty clear that that's happened several times before. So decent supply coming in at around 180 to 190. I would put something like that. 180 for the buyers as well. 188 to 190 I mean, and here 180 for the buyers as well. Some demand, so unfortunately, nope, the basilisk, I'm not seeing it primed too well for a big spike up. I could be wrong, of course, but I would like to definitely see buy orders sub 180, close to 175 honestly, before I could say that this is a sure good bet. Next up here we've got Cerberus, went as low as 180, moved a little bit up. Let's see what the sellers are at, what now, 188. It's a little bit too timid of an increase in price. Look at the supply here, pretty big, but there's not that many buyers be above 180 left, so that's right here on the chart. So yeah, I still think that to pick up some cheap Cerberuses on the buy order side, I think you could still do it if you somehow manage to get past these 12 orders that are left here. Considering the volumes, it should still be possible, I think, to pick up Cerberus at a good price. The increase in price here has already been snuffed out, unfortunately, by a big chunk of supply here all of a sudden. So not a big speculative spike where you could make a lot of money. I would still look at trying to buy a couple of Cerberus at the moment. Next up here, the Enyo, showing way too stable a chart for the assault frigate. So unfortunately, despite that one big drop and then move back up, straight back to where it should have been, yeah, the Enyo assault frigates, I'm just gonna remove that one. Too stable, you can't make a lot of trade money on this one. Next up here we've got the Guardian, dropping towards 130 again, double for a second time. That starts to be pretty interesting. 127.5 for the buyers, 132 for the sellers. Supply, I think, could slowly start to dry up. Guardians, yeah, you can pick them up for 127, which is right here on the chart. It's a little bit risky considering where we were 6 months ago, but I think that on a good spike you could make some money on Guardians at the moment. Next up here, the Hound, unfortunately moving right in its 17 to 19 million band. So this would be neither the time to buy or to sell. I think I would wait for a better opportunity on either side of this. Yeah, buyers above 17, definitely nothing you want to make a move on. Sellers nowhere near 19 to 20 million, so that's definitely too late as well. Next up here we get the Ishtar, dropping towards 160 again. All of them are showing like a little bit of a double dip here in like the last week or so. So 155.7 for the buyers, 161 for the sellers, and 55. It's still just a little bit too high. You know, you need buyers between 150 and 155 to say, okay, you're definitely doing a good deal on buying a couple of Ishtars, waiting for an opportunity to sell at like close to 175. But at the moment, I would still wait. So here's the Manticore then slowly going down again. Buyers 19.7, below 20 million still. There's not that many of them. If at some point volatility shows up, then the Manticore is pretty good to be investing in at the moment. Of course, only one spike, really noticeable spike, maybe two to be seen here in the last 3-4 months. You could go for 3 in the last 6 months, but honestly this one is very slow moving. That one I think is not that good. So yeah, the Manticores, if you expect more volatility to come back in the markets, especially in the stealth bomber market, this could be good. Otherwise, yeah, definitely stay away from that if you think it's too stable. Next up here we've got the Nemesis. That was a lovely opportunity right here, dropping towards 17.5, then moving back up towards 19 million. That was quite okay, I think. Close to 2 million in profit on an investment of 17.5. That was quite okay. Unfortunately, it's already been broken, that upwards momentum, because of big supply. So buyers are still at close to 18 million, sellers are at 18.5 million. So it's not the time to make a move on the Nemesis, but it shows that there was a slight opportunity not that long ago. Next up here, the Oniros, again moving back down towards 145, but I would like to see buyers sub 140 before, yeah, thank you. Before I would say that it's okay to make a move on the Oniros. So again, very small margin, decently stable numbers. Take 2 market is just not being that volatile at the moment. Same with the Purifier, you can see it clearly here, moving between the 16 to 18 million band, slowly moving back up here. Probably there's no opportunity here. Next up we've got the Scimitar, went up from 130 to 136.7, but it was completely crushed again, that upwards movement. We would like to see this double in violence going up towards like 150, something like that. Unfortunately, it's just not happening at the moment. Buyers are sub 130, so if you want to invest in something for a later opportunity, this is probably okay to buy a couple scimitars on buy orders. But honestly, I'm not seeing the volatility at the moment. Next up here, we've got the Vengeance slowly edging back down towards 19 million. The buyers are at 18.1, 18.2. That's right here on the charts. That's starting to be okay, although you could definitely wait for buyers to dip below 18 million as well on the Vengeance before making a move here. So in general, honestly, the Take-Two market, I'm seeing some longer term, medium to longer term investments that you could make on some of the very low charts here at the moment, some of the very low buy orders. But I'm not seeing any great opportunities, a lot of volatility. So unfortunately for the traders, it's going to be very hard to eke out a living in the Take-Two market at the moment. Next up, the Tech-3 market then, 30-40. 30-40 for that one. Let's start just from the top here. Confessor finally stabilizing at around 54 million. Supply-wise, well, 25 to 24 hours ago, then 55.14 day before that, and 37.18 here. So it looks like we have decent supply, and at 54 million, something like that seems to be what's okay for a Confessor at the moment. Next up here, we've got the Hecate going up towards 55 million. Are we seeing some supply that could slow the chart down? Well, it's at 62 million. For the sellers, supply-wise though, that's quite a lot of them coming in less than 24 hours. So I actually think that will start to draw back down for the Hecate. Next up here, we've got the Jackdaw, 55 million on the chart once again. 55 million for the sellers, decently good sellers less than 24 hours ago. So the Jackdaw could finally be stabilizing as well. And then there's Weeble for the Destroyers, 58 million supply-wise. Not bad either. Look at that. All of this is less than 24 hours old. So if you have any production that can still be moved, it could probably be towards the Hecate. That's still an opportunity. All the other ones seem well supplied at like 55 to 60 million price range, something like that. For the Destroyers at least. Now I'll start with the Tengu because that one went back up decently violently. Let's take a look at supply demand here. Supply less than 24 hours old. Well, actually 18 of them coming in here, but all of them trying to sell above 190 million. Buyers went as high as 184 already with 41 units. Yeah, that's definitely going to allow the Tengu to stay in a bit of a higher range for quite a while now, because that means that people do expect Tengus to become like 185 to 195 probably in range. So yeah, the Tech-3 cruisers are slowly going up in price in a pretty violent manner, with sometimes the market being bought out when they dip pretty low, like right here. You can clearly see we dipped sub 150, then went up in two big jumps towards 200 million. So that's a jump of 50 million, 25% in no time. And then we saw some pressure from supply coming in because of that good price, but now again above 190, it seems to be where Tengus are heading. So yeah, the cruisers are doing really well, so are the Destroyers. For some reason, this seems to be a market that's increasing in price in general. Here is the Proteus chart next. That one is slowing down at 170. Let's see if supply is drying up. Yeah, you only see a few recent orders of Protea just below 180, so people are hesitating to crush this market, and why the hell not? I mean, just look at the Hecate market and you know that you don't have to make nothing but Protea. You can clearly try to make a couple of Jackdaws or Hecates and probably make a much better margin profit on them than that. So the Proteus, I think, is primed for some sideways movement, and then if people compare them to the other cruisers, they could probably go in and buy all the Proteae that are sub 190, something like that, as well, causing the price chart to go back up. It is pretty much primed for this. Quite a bit of volatility now that we're actually seeing in the Tech 3 market. Same here with the Loki, so nice double spike up to 210, dropping below 170, but working its way back up. So I would say that there's not that much new. Yep, 221127. All of those are less than 24 hours old, but it's no longer 10, 20, 50, 70 of them coming in. And this is putting some pressure back up for the Loki as well, currently selling at 176. Finally, here we have the Legion selling at 180. Yeah, the recent supply actually 24 hours old. That's actually pretty good. So we're probably going to see a little bit of pressure. Well, actually, no, the Legion went as low as 160 on the chart here. Now working its way back up. Probably going to hesitate at this point close to 180. But I'm seeing decent volatility in the Tech 3 market. That's pretty interesting. I'm seeing that despite the fact that quite a few of them are decently supplied and should be stabilizing, we're still seeing gaps like the Hecate right now in supply. I mean, 62 million. Oh, well, as I'm speaking, they're coming in, of course, with 10, 8 people. People are apparently doing the same thing as I am, trying to spot the gaps in the Tech 3 production and trying to take advantage of those higher prices. But that does always seem to mean that others are drying up, like here the Proteus. There's really not that much new coming in. The Jackdaw, I mean, there's a couple of new orders, but it's not that many, probably 60 of them for a daily use. Could be okay on a daily basis here, but it's interesting how the Tech 3 production is not showing this oversupply anymore. Probably due in major parts to the 4 destroyers that have been introduced to the game, but it could be just a general situation at the moment in EVE Online, because we're also seeing it in the Tech 1 market at the moment. Where gaps need to be plugged, ships go up pretty violently, and then supply finally comes in, especially for bigger ships a couple of weeks later, causing the price to go back down. But because of that, there seem to be gaps showing up in other ships as well, and it's definitely pretty interesting. I would almost say that you could make some money on these trades, but it is pretty risky. In the Tech 3 market at the moment. I feel that it is pretty damn risky, but on moves from the Tengu like this, from all of them in fact, both the Tengu, then the Proteus, look at that, going from 140 up very violently to 220, now settling back down at 170, supply is drying up, and buy orders are at 168, which is right here on the chart. I mean, it's decently risky, but it's showing way more potential percentage-wise than the Tech 2 market at the moment. So pretty interesting stuff, and definitely something that we've not seen in a while. It looks to me like the industrial potential in the Tech 1 market and the Tech 3 market is lagging behind a little bit. We'll have to keep an eye on all of this and see if that's indeed what's happening at the moment. And then for the extra material, 37.5 minutes, I'll take a look at the isotope. It's been a while. They should be used, I think, in the new fuel blocks, but we're not seeing that big impact. Helium isotopes definitely at a low point for 6 months, below 700 for the buyers, 677, 702 for the sellers. So decently stable and decently low for the last 6 months for helium isotopes. Let's take a look at hydrogen isotopes. A bit of a higher point, but slowly going back down here. Speculative moves up to 720. Now we're heading for 708 for the sellers, 666 for the buyers. So that one is going back down a little bit as well. And despite the fact that we're high for the 6 months, we're actually at the same price point as the helium isotopes for the hydrogen ones. Next up, we've got nitrogen at 860, decently stable recently, but at a high point as well. It's weird how all of them are doing something different, because these are at 857 ISK, which is quite a bit higher than the other isotopes. So nitrogen is at a high point, decently stable in the last few weeks and months, but clearly at a high point for 6 months. And then oxygen isotopes, that one shows decent stability over 6 months, starting at 705, ending at probably close to 710, 715. That's really nothing to write home about. 694 for the seller buyers, 712 for the sellers. So the isotopes, yeah, kind of weird. All of them are doing their own thing. One is at a low point for 6 months, pretty stable. That seems to be the one thing across the board. All of them are pretty stable in the last 2 weeks and months. But helium isotopes at a low for 6 months. Hydrogen isotopes at a decently high point, but seemingly trying to go back down a little bit at the tail end and at the same price point as helium isotopes. Nitrogen isotopes stable, but at a high point for 6 months. And then oxygen isotopes just straight up stable over 6 months. Weird market here at the moment. I would have thought we would see some impact from the new fuel blocks, but I guess that's just not happening at the moment. Sort of strange and outside of my expectations. Anyways, that's it for this Eve Talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.